All right, worksheet day 9. Now they're getting into percents and their applications. So you might not be able to finish all of the topics in that first mathematical foundations until you've come to this chapter where we talk about percents. For example, that last one where we did that circle graph. You may have to start this chapter before it lets you into the next one, just because of the order of things that you have to do. First of all, it says convert the following decimal to a percent and round your answer to the nearest tenth of a percent. So percent means out of 100. So anytime you're converting a decimal to a percent, you're going to multiply by 100 and add the percent sign. So in this case, when I multiply by 100, the easiest thing to do is just move your decimal 2 places. You could use your calculator and take 0.69 times 100, but if I just move my decimal 2 places, I get 69%. 0.69 is 69%. If I'm calculating the next one, which is 0.7, again, I have to multiply it by 100 and add the percent sign, which moves my decimal 2 places. I have to add a 0. 0.7 equals 70% because I have to have it 2 places over. The third one, convert the following decimal to a percent. If I have 0.88, again, I move my decimal 2 places, so I just get 88%. If you need to, multiply by 100, but shortcut, just move it over 2 places. It's always 2 places. So number 4 says convert 74% to a decimal equivalent. In other words, get rid of the percent sign. What we're going to do is divide by 100 to remove the percent. And when I divide by 100, I move my decimal back 2 places. So I go 1, 2 places, I get 0.74. They'll probably put the 0 in front just because it looks prettier. So 0.74 is 74%. Number 5, convert it to its decimal equivalent. So move the decimal back 2 places. 1, 2. So 0.630. Oops, there's 2 3s there. I better fix that. 0.63307. Put the 0 in front because it looks prettier. And it says round to the nearest thousandths. Thousandths. 3 places. And it went more than 3 places. So since that's a 0, we're just going to drop that off. And so 0.633 is what we're going to put in. This one was only in the 100th spot, so we didn't have to worry about rounding. But if it says thousandth spot, we only want 3 places after the decimal. If it's farther than that, we're going to round. Convert 85% to a decimal. Again, we move it back 2 places. So we just get 0.85, and they're going to want you to put the 0 in front because it looks prettier. So 85% is the decimal 0.85. Always back 2 places. Percent out of 100. The next one says convert 62.5 to a fraction. Again, percent means out of 100. And so I'm going to do 62.5 over 100. Now if I have a decimal there, I've got to make that top number a whole number like I did when I was dividing with decimals. So I have to move this over 1 place, which means I have to add 1 0 there. So it's 625 over 1,000. Now I want to reduce my fraction down. So in this case I can reduce it down because I can divide both of those. Let's go by 25. And since it doesn't say I can't use my calculator, which I hid, I'm just going to use my calculator. So 625 divided by 25 is 25. 1,000 divided by 25 is 40. Ah, they're still both divisible by 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. Now if I'm looking at that 5/8, I'm going to say, okay, 62.5 divided by 100 is the decimal, 0.625. Then shift in the fraction button, yep, 5/8. Number 8. So I throw my pen on the floor. Convert 115% to a fraction. So 115% would be 115 over 100. And then again, it wants us to reduce the fraction. So in this case, I'm going to start by dividing by 5 since they're both even. 115 divided by 5 is 23. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Now it doesn't say to put it as a mixed number, it just says reduce the fraction. So 23 over 20. The next one, we have 5%. 5% means 5 out of 100. I can reduce that down because I can divide by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So 1/20th is 5%. Probably should have circled that one. It went with the first answer, number 7. Number 10, we have a fraction that we want to change to a percent. There's actually 2 ways to do this, depending on if you want decimals or if you want whole numbers. So I'm going to show you both ways. If I have 3 over 2 and I want it as a percent, one way is to make an equivalent fraction. This only works if the denominator divides evenly into 100, which in all 3 of these cases do. 100 divided by 2 is 50, so 2 times 50 is 100. So I'd have to take 3 times 50, which is 150. 150 over 100 is 150%. So 3 halves, which is an improper fraction, is 150%. If you think about a common thing, the number 1 whole circle is 100%. If my fraction is bigger than 1, I should have a bigger than 100%. If my fraction is less than 1, I should have less than 100%. The other way to do this is to change your fraction to a decimal. 3 divided by 2, 3 halves. 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. I still have to times it by 100, however, to add the percent sign. So if I move my decimal 2 places, hey, I get the same answer, 150%. So you can either change it to a decimal and multiply by 100, or make an equivalent fraction if the denominator goes into 100. In this case, 3/4. Again, 4 goes into 100 evenly, so I could do it this way. 4 goes into 100 25 times, so 3 times 25 is 75. 75% is going to be my answer then. Otherwise, I can do 3 divided by 4. It gives me a decimal. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. I times it by 100 to add the percent, move it 2 places, and I see, oh, I got the exact same answer, whether I did the fraction or the decimal. You can't always do the fraction, but you can always do the division. Sometimes you have to round your answers if it happens to tell you to round, but it gives you a couple different options of what you can do. 4/5 to a percent. 4/5, again, 5 does divide into 100 nicely, so I could say 5 goes into 100 20 times. 20 times 4 is 80. So 80%, got my answer. Or 4 divided by 5. 4 divided by 5 gives me 0.8. I have to times it by 100 to add the percent sign, so move it 2 places, 0.8, 80%. Either way, I get the same answer. So it's kind of a matter of preference. However, if you'd have something like 2/3, 3 doesn't go into 100, you'd have to do it the other way. You have to say 2 divided by 3, and this one you're going to have to round because it doesn't come out nice. 2 divided by 3 is 0.666666666. So if it says round to the nearest tenth of a percent, I move my decimal 2 places, 66 point, and I'd have to round that off to 7% if it happened to tell me to round to the nearest tenth of a percent, like those ones do. So, 2 options for changing a fraction to a percent. Either make the equivalent fraction over 100, or divide it out and then change your decimal to a percent. So, that's the end of that first worksheet, day 9, or at least the first worksheet in the decimal section.